Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Bandhan Bank Limited Q4 earnings call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Hiren Shah, Head of Investor Relations, Bandhan Bank Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Janice. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining this conference call. We are glad to welcome you all to discuss Bandhan Bank's business and financial performance for the quarter and year ending March 2021. We will take this opportunity to update you on the recent developments in the industry and Bandhan Bank during this quarter. To discuss all this in detail, I've got with me our Founder, Managing Director and CEO, Mr. Chandra Shekhar Ghosh, our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Sunil Samdani, our EEB Head, Mr. Kumar Ashif, Housing Finance Head, Mr. Suresh Iyer, and myself, Hiren Shah, Head of Investor Relations. Now I would like to request our Founder, MD and CEO, Mr. Chandra Shekhar Ghosh, to brief you all about the bank's operational and financial performance along with developments for the quarter ending March 2021. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Hiren. Good evening to my all friends and investors. I hope you are keeping yourself and your loved ones in a safe. It is my pleasure to bring you the results of the fourth quarter of the financial year 2021. We are now facing the second wave of pandemic, which is severe than the first wave. But this time, the learning is there. This time is there local lockdown, not the national lockdown. We are more matured, more learning from the first wave, and vaccination and mask behavior have been helped us to more protect our life from the pandemic COVID situation. In this time, I feel that the business and population in general have learned to coexist with pandemic. We have seen good improvement in business parameters. We know that the peak of the business is the EEB group. So EEB collection efficiency has come very good improvement from the quarter 3 to quarter 4, which is 98.1%. And if I say that the customers are paid in EEB, which is 99.6%. And it is the number I have been talking about it. It is other than my NPA and return of customers. But if I come to this, the NPA or return of customers, and who are more than 90 days, 72% of these customers who are more than 90 days in the DPD, they are paying 72% of the people. That given the confidence to the bank, because of these EEB customers, when they start the paying, maybe the 1 installment, 2 installment, 3 and 4, they will be future come as a regular customer and they are not risk for the bank. So in that confidence, we find out on that the next year 21-22 will be the best in the bank. 11% of because of our strategy, we are matured Group loan, we are going to transform to the individual loan. So 11% of the group loan transform to the individual loan, which collection efficiency more than 99%. New customer addition happened in this bank in this financial year, which is very near to pre-COVID situation, which is 88%. And disbursement also has come 95% pre-COVID situation. NPA is declining, is more comfort in bank future growth of the business. Customers are paying, continuously geographically diversify the book. That also gives the best comfort to the bank in future. Coming to the specific of the West Bengal and Assam. West Bengal combined uncertainties of second wave and election. We have touched a 98.3% collection efficiency in March, which is borrower-wise, it is a 99% customer are paying. If I go to the Assam, storm has settled, election over. Then we also see that 83% of our customers are paying. Collection efficiency has come 94% in March, and customer paying other than NPA customer 98.5%. I feel now very confident with my customer in Assam. The people are looking future to start and restart their business. And that can be helped our business growth and NPA decline. We are as a bank, we are not only the financial services, we are good contributor to the society for social activities. We know that this is a very critical moment in the COVID. This COVID situation, you know, we have the 11 training centers across the country. We are now 700 beds of these training centers. We have given to the government for use for COVID patients. 400 we have given to the West Bengal government, 100 given to the Assam government for their request. And the balance we have given to the other states, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra and others. Government also requested us to supply, given some of this oxygen concentration, which is very important in this moment, which is the supply is not that much. The bank, the Bandhan is not only bank, Bandhan are imported 500 oxygen concentration to given to the government, specifically asking by West Bengal government we are giving to 300 and Assam government asking 200, we are giving to the 200 to the Assam government. Other than this, West Bengal have that the police hospital, which has been built up by the British but not utilized. The government requested us on that to help for this the hospital to active for the COVID patients. We are now setting the infrastructure of 200 beds where the people can get the benefit for save their life from the COVID situation. So these are the couple of initiatives we have taken as a socially, how we can be help the government and the public will be like to get the benefit and recover from the COVID situation. Strong liabilities base is our history, continuously improving collection efficiency and high capital base of the bank. It helps us future good growth of the balance sheet. And whatever the risk we feel, very conservatively we are booked as a provision, as a written off, we have been done in this financial year. So next financial year, only the growth and good quality of the portfolio. Coming to some of the points of the financial information. As usual, our deposit growth has come 36.6% year on year. CASA continued the 43.4% and retail deposit 78.8% and total deposit 78,000 crores around. Advance 87,000 crores, which is advance growth has come this pandemic situation 21.2% year on year. Out of that, 59% is EEB loan, which was earlier 61%. We see that in this year, EEB growth has come 26% year on year, and housing loan has come 8.8%. After the merger, this year has given the very good improvement of the growth in the housing loan. Our total income of the bank 9,672 crores, which is a 22.9% growth year on year, and quarter on quarter total income has come 3.1% growth. If I come to this, the operating profit 6,855 crores. The versus, if I see that my last year, that means in 1920, 5,446 crores, which is the 25.9% year on year growth has come. Come to this, the provision. In this time, we have been done some provision, and it is very conservatively to take all risk to this year, so that the next year it will be not differ on that. So this quarter we have been taken 1,503 crores extra provision, which is now total provision has come 3,810 crores. We also written off this year, this means this quarter we have been written off 1,929 crores, which is the total written off 2,038 crores. We are restructured some loan in housing loan, which is 617 crores. We know that housing loan is our affordable housing. Around 50% of this loan is in self-employed. They are requested us to give some of the benefit of the restructure, then there will be very comfort on that. For that reason, bank has decided and given 617 crores restructuring for housing loan, but it is not in a risk in the bank. Other than this, in this quarter, we have been reversed 534 crores with the interest, which we are booked earlier. In this quarter, we are reversed on that. All of these together, after that the provision, written off, restructuring and interest reversed, our PAT, profit after tax, has come 2,205 crores yearly. And if I come to the quarterly, it is 103 crores. Our gross NPA has come in this moment, it is 6.8%, which was pro forma in third quarter 7.1%. It has been reduced. Net NPA 3.5%, and our NIM which is now has come in this year as a 7.8%, which was in the last year 8.1%. And we are always talked about the mean. It will be retained on that as a 7.8 to 8% on that. Cost to income ratio have been reduced, which is last year it was a 30.8%. This year it has come 29.1%. Bank has a good capital, and that capital adequacy ratio is at 23.46%. So all these is the parameters I have been placed to all of you, and I am very much confident on that. The bank are performed within this, the first pandemic situation is a very good within all these limitations, and we are also taking a risk as a conservative way in this year. For that reason, on the basis of that, the next financial year 21-22, we have a big confidence on that with my team will be performed as a normal before the COVID situation. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Maruf Ajania from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. So my first question is that there are standard provisions of 3.9 billion. So are those mandatory RBI provisions? The provisions of 15 to 40 basis points that RBI wants banks to maintain, or are these over and above those provisions?
These 3.9 billion provisions are over and above the standard asset provision as required by RBI.
Okay, and most banks have not dipped into their contingency provisions. So we had around 27 billion of COVID provisions in the third quarter and 31 billion of total standard provisions. And now it's come down to 3.9. So why would you, and most banks have not dipped into their provisions, and even NBFCs have maintained their management overlay provisions. So why did we take a decision to dip into our standard provision?
See, we have taken a big write-off this quarter, right, which most banks have not. We have taken this accelerated write-off, and that's one big reason why we see a dip in the provisioning or the buffer that we had. Right? At some point of time, one has to take that call when to do that. So we did it immediately so that we wanted things to be more stable going forward.
Got it. And of that 19.3 billion, how much would be Assam and how much would be West Bengal?
So Assam is 772 and West Bengal is 671.
Okay, and the rest is all spread across states?
Across states.
Nothing major apart from these two, no?
No. Yes.
And is it possible to get the slippage figure and also for fourth quarter? Excluding the pro forma slippages. So the slippages related only to Q4.
So if you look at our DPD positions, they have actually improved. If you look at the overall overdue positioning, right? Our DPD have actually improved by 2,300 crore even if I include the write-off number. If I take the benefit of write-off, then the overdue amount has improved by almost 4,300 crores.
Correct. Correct. But would you be able to share the gross slippage figure? The amount of loans that slipped in the fourth quarter, gross?
Yes.
Sir, does that answer your question?
No, we are waiting for the slippage figure.
We'll come back to on your gross slippages number. We have it on a statutory basis, which means the NPA as classified versus NPA classified now. But that actually, is the statutory slippages. That does not give the clear picture. One has to look at the pro forma 90 plus as on December and then see what it was as on March. So during the call, we'll come back to that number.
Okay, sir. That will be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Saurabh from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Sir, two questions. So one is on this provisioning. So we have 2,900 crores of specific provision, 1,900 crores is the write-off, and another 390 is the standard overall. So basically 5,200 is what you have provided for this entire pandemic. That will be a correct assessment, sir?
Yes, the total provisioning that we have done during the quarter, 1,503 crores. 1,594 including the M2M, that is for Q4, and for the full year it is 3,907.
No, sir, for the entire pandemic, including what you took last year. So I'm just looking at the specific is 29,
Yes.
19 is the write-off, and 400 is the standard, right? So the pandemic provision is about 5,200 crores, right?
Yeah, roughly thereabout.
Okay, sir. And Mr. Ghosh, sir, this 1,900 crore write-off, sir, I mean, in Bandhan's history, I don't think you've ever taken these kind of write-offs. So how do you think about the underwriting, sir, in the MFI portfolio?
So I feel that this is a very good write-off we have been done. Now profit, the portfolio quality is good, and I am not feeling that anything further which will become of that.
And sir, and this write-off, it's not the outcome of a poor underwriting. This write-off is the outcome of the general environment, right? A pandemic we've never seen in last 100 years. Right? And coupled with that, we had state-specific issues like Assam, right, where we had to deal with the moratorium, we have to deal with the bill, we have to deal with loan waivers, right, elections in our key states like Assam and West Bengal. So clearly, in last 2 years, as far as Bandhan is concerned, never in our history we had to face so much of environmental issues at one go. Right, so we don't see underwriting here is a challenge. It's more of an environment, and as the dust settles down with all of this now going back, we think with the same set of standards, things should start improving going forward.
And my point of that, the underwriting, we are very, very keen on that to assess the quality of customers' business. But in this COVID situation, that some of the areas which are the small manufacturing units, there is the demand is not coming from the nearest state, so that they are disturbed on that. And this type of people are coming to the write-off on now. So this is for specific of COVID situation and also some part of this the Assam situation. It is not the normal situation and the write-off issue, underwriting issue for that region we are the making this the return.
Sir, and one final question on Assam, sir. I mean, now that the elections are over, how are you seeing the situation there? And given that the competition is also kind of, I think, fully exited the market. Thank you.
Now, if you see that the election over, government is now going to form, and I hope that the customer also understand about it. They have a need the money to run their business. So that gradually customer also coming return back to the normal. So you see that the 83% of the customer paying to us. If you remove the NPA customer, that is a 98.5% customer paying us within this circumstance. I hope that this quarter and next quarter it will become to this the very normal position.
And if you have to see the positives from this, clearly, we used to be the single lender for most part of our life that we worked in Assam. We've seen competition coming in, and that kind of disturbed, this equation. Now with this challenge, we are seeing competition retreating also. So as things stabilize, we see Assam will again be a big opportunity for us. But yes, it's a math. We can't time it today, whether it takes 3 months, 6 months or a year. But going forward, we see this as an opportunity.
We already listen from the customer point of view. Customer has expressed to the people and us also, sir, I can be like to stop the repayment. And maybe the government will be repay on that. But they cannot give the loan. But I have need the loan for business. And I need to come to you to take the loan. Why I like to make a red alert to my account in the credit bureau. So this is a good awareness that will also build up. That has been very good hope on that future. The business growth will come.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Agarwal from Motilal Oswal Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Hope you and all your colleagues are keeping safe in these challenging times. A few questions. Firstly, good to see the progress that you are making on the asset quality front in such a difficult environment. But from the collection efficiency and the repayment rate chart, like 4% of the customers are part paying. However, the SMA book now stands a little higher than 8%. So does this indicate that customers with higher ticket sizes are delaying the payments and therefore showing more vulnerability? Any color on this, and what is the vintage of these SMA customers like?
No, I don't think that's actually the case. There is no clear preference in terms of vintage that we can see in our portfolio that a high vintage is doing better or a low vintage is doing better or a high ticket size is doing better or a low ticket size. But one thing we can surely see is certain businesses are clearly seeing the stress, right? Whether it's the beauty parlor business or it's the sari manufacturing or the jerry work and pockets of Bengal. Those locations and those pockets, we are seeing some level of stress, and that's where we see the NPAs and the non-paying customers.
If I mention on that, we are transforming to the group from the group loan to the individual loan. So individual loan, which is called the Samriddhi loan, 99+% of the repayment, which are high vintage of the customer. Second point I like to mention is in March, 92% of our customers are paid in the full installment to us. 3% customer needs to one installment instead of 4 installments. And only less than 1% of the borrowers are not paying any installment. In that sense, if I say that 50% of my borrowers, if it is a more than 4 years, and they are high vintage in that area, so they are not like to come in this analysis. So they are coming to this more default and more NPA.
Sure, sir. And secondly, like for this year, we guided for a 5% credit cost, and we have come like around about that number for FY21. So any outlook if you can give for FY22 on this front?
See, we would want to refrain from giving a credit cost guidance for the FY22, but we can surely say that we have taken an accelerated provision and accelerated write-off. This should help us reducing our credit costs going forward. We are facing the COVID-2 situation. If things improve over the next 2 months' time, then we are very confident of keeping this cost materially below the current level. But at this time, we would want to refrain probably in a month or two when things become more clear on the COVID-2 wave. We should be in a position. But as a strategy, and as a policy now, given our learnings of last 2 years, what we are saying is we'll continue to make provisions irrespective whether there is a risk or no risk. We want to build certain buffers, because this last 2 years have been a good learning for us. And for times like this, we want to have certain buffers in our balance sheet.
Sure. And Sunil, like we have talked about the collection efficiency trends in March. If you can share some color as to how that has been in April and what sort of potential restructurings do we look forward to in the micro banking segment now that the RBI has opened up the window again? In the past, we have not used it, but do you think that we will now be open to this restructuring?
So far, we've not done any restructuring, and I don't think there is any reason for us to change our mind there. So we'll continue to believe that restructuring is the last option for this segment of customers. And on the April collection efficiency side, there we have seen a reduction of about 3 to 4% in the April collection efficiency, like-to-like basis, whichever way we look at, including NPAs and write-off or excluding NPAs and write-off.
Just to mention on that, the West Bengal is a less than 3%.
Okay, sir. And lastly, if I can just ask one more, I have a clarification to ask for. Like last quarter, we reported a very large SMA book at around 16-17%, which is now almost halved. So just want to know if there is any one-time NPA in the reported NPA, which as of now is not actually 90 DPD on outstanding basis.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? We could not get that.
Yeah, it's actually slightly complicated. So what I'm trying to ask, like last quarter we reported 16-17% SMA accounts, and because we were reporting all on pro forma basis. Now, as we reported in March the real numbers on the and followed the IRAC, so has there been any accounts in the NPA bucket which are not actually 90 DPD? They probably crossed 90 DPD in the prior months, and then they came down because of the repayments, because the repayment rates are quite good as we see. So are there accounts in the outstanding GNPA which are not 90 plus?
So there is an account because, as I said, as per IRAC norms, once the account crosses 90, it continues to remain in NPA till it becomes 0 DPD. So there is about 400 odd crores in the 5,700 odd NPA, total NPA that we have, where the DPDs will be less than 90, but NPA.
Okay, sure. Thanks so much. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shagun Verma from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir. And your colleagues. I hope everybody is staying safe. Actually, a couple of questions. First, to start with, again, coming back to this provisioning policy. Now that we've utilized, whatever cover that we were, holding till last quarter, while Sunil, I appreciate the comments that you made, but what exactly would be the strategy going forward? Have you changed the policy with regards to microfinance loan, wherein earlier you used to take extra provisioning? Could you accelerate that extra provisioning that you used to take, or how should we think about it? Because clearly the volatility has increased, the environment has become dynamic. So I guess, one would want to keep extra provision on the balance sheet. So any thoughts that you can share?
So, see, I would not want to quantify that number today, but as I mentioned, directionally we would want to keep some buffers in the balance sheet and we would want to build every year, right? Irrespective whether there is a risk or no risk in the environment. So when there is a risk in the environment, to that extent it will get utilized. So on the whole, we want to keep some buffers in the balance sheet. The quantification, I may not be able to do it at this stage. But what is also important here to understand is the, how to read the NPAs of our bank, particularly in the micro banking segment, right? Of the total 4,500 odd crore NPA that we show today in micro banking, about 78% of the customers have paid some installments in March, right? And as high as 5-6% have paid their full installments in the month of March. Right? So clearly, the idea here is to understand why these accounts are in NPA and how to read the risk into those accounts. Right? We've tried to analyze our risk in our presentation. If you get a chance, you can go through that slide. Essentially, what we are saying is even in the NPA bucket, we have 78% customers who are paying us. And the proportion of paying small amounts, which is up to 25%, is also relatively small than the proportion of paying more than 25%. So our point is, this NPA is largely a timing difference. At some point of time, they may take 3 months, 6 months more, but there will be a write back in these customers. Having said that, as I mentioned earlier, there could be some challenges or the other. That's what our learning is for last 2 years. And accordingly, we would strengthen our balance sheet more than what we had provided earlier. I'm saying the normal scenario.
Well, that makes sense, Sunil. The other question is related to this on slide 8. So these portfolios, is of course, X of write-off, if I'm not wrong. Is that a correct way of reading it?
Yes.
Okay. And similarly, slide 7, the bucket movement. Again, what is the denominator here? The denominator is X of write-off and NPAs, or this is the overall portfolio?
So this is
90 days
X
and
of
NPA.
write-off, but include NPA.
X of write-off and include NPA.
Yes.
All right. Just another question on the environment at the ground level, right now. So clearly, what we read, in the media, etc., that transportation has again come to, let's say, standstill or maybe partially operating, which we understood from you all that last time around in the third quarter or maybe in the second quarter, that was one of the reasons for a delayed recovery or improvement in collection efficiencies. So how do you see, let's say over the next 2 months, of course, given what information we have at this point of time, this whole transportation, kind of coming to, halt, etc., is going to impact the collection efficiencies?
If you see that I am Chandrasekhar speaking, no? And if you see the last time we see that there is a train is not moving and there is lots of small producers cannot sell their products in the city. But when the train had started, that time we saw that these people produced goods are selling to the not only the state, there is a neighbor states also purchased from that. And these neighbor states in that time also, there is no free movement to the state in Bengal. One cause is there. There's many of the states, they have need to come with a COVID test. If COVID test is not negative, they will not come on that. So this situation, if whatever now stops the train, similar thing is there is no change on that. If I say that before the May, the people are not able to come, but the train is open. Now train is not open, but still now the same thing on that, the people are not coming from the other states. And these people cannot be like to stay. So whatever we are taken this the risk in the last March or April, and the train open in the same risk is there. But risk will not increase because of the train stop.
Okay. So basically the risk has not changed, or rather not gone up, and therefore it's already reflected in the portfolio. Is that a right way of looking at it?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Just one more question on this write-off of 1,900 crores. What does it mean in terms of number of customers?
About 4,10,612.
4,10,000 crores. Sorry, 4,10,000 customers. Got it.
4,10,000.
Yeah. Fair enough. Thank you so much, and wish you all a safe health.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nishant Shah from Macquarie. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. So first off, I appreciate the detailed disclosures. Very much helpful. But here in I have a couple of questions / feedback. So in 2Q, I think you had told us that we are not really looking to do any kind of ECLGS or any kind of government guaranteed top-ups. But in 3Q now, in this PPT, you have disclosed that you've done about 1,800 crores worth of disbursements of ECLGS in 3Q itself. So ideally, this should have been communicated in 3Q, right? So why was that not chosen to be done? And just a question now related to that. Second, what is the cumulative amount of ECLGS disbursements that we have done now so far, including 3Q and 4Q? And if you could split that up by states, that would be helpful. Yeah, so that's the first question.
Yeah, so as far as the ECLGS loan goes, that was done only in third quarter, not in the second quarter. And that was done at the request of customers, and government was also pushing these loans to be given to the small borrowers whose businesses are getting impacted because of COVID. And accordingly, we had taken that decision to give ECLGS loan in Q3. Now that we have given ECLGS loan once, we have not given any further ECLGS loans in Q4.
Okay. There's a government filing which shows about 2,300 crores of cumulative total ECLGS. So what would be that difference amount? Is it, this is as of January, that is. So the difference between 2,300 and 1,800, what does that mean? Is that new ECLGS done in 4Q? Or is it just non-EEB ECLGS kind of loans?
We have done ECLGS only in Q3, and in Q3 about 1,850 crores was in EEB vertical, and then there was about 100 crores in the small enterprise loan vertical.
Okay, and there's absolutely no other ECLGS disbursements apart from this?
Nothing.
Okay, perfect. And could you give the split between West Bengal, Assam and rest of India of these in terms of say number of customers or value of disbursements?
So about 53% of these ECLGS loans went to West Bengal customers.
Mm-hmm.
And about 20% of this went to Assam customers.
Okay. No, but what would it be as a percentage of the total customers that you have? So, for example, if you have, say, 100 customers in Assam, what percentage of those customers would have received ECLGS, and similarly for West Bengal?
So,
See, 53% ECLGS total is about 1900 crores, which is roughly, if I have to take it as a percentage of my total book. I can give you the number of accounts where I've given the ECLGS. In West Bengal, it is 8,14,000, and in Assam, it is 3,64,000.
3 lakh, sorry, could you repeat that?
3,64,265.
Okay, perfect. And so there's almost like, a 500,000 increase in the number of loan accounts in 3Q and Assam. What explains the balance kind of account addition? This would be, I'm assuming, X of like new customer addition.
So some will be the new customer addition. I'm not too sure about 5 lakh increase. I'm not sure because my data doesn't show that there is an increase of 5 lakh customers in Assam. So I'm not
Loan accounts. So could be like, top-ups included, which is what I'm asking.
Top-up has been, after September quarter, there is hardly any top-up.
Okay. Fine. I have more questions. I'll come back in the queue.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Samir BK from JM Financial. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to get a breakup of other income for the quarter. And PSLC fees, trading gains.
So 787 crores of other income. The maximum contribution has come from PSLC of 324 crores. The disbursement have increased accordingly. The processing fees have increased to 297 crores. The third largest contributor is the third party income now that we have started distributing insurance products. So 82 crores have come as income from the distribution of third party. So these three are the top three items.
Okay. Secondly, can you just highlight the NPL movement between slippages, write-offs you've told, but recoveries and slippages?
If you take the pro forma number of 5,515 crores as of December, the additional slippage, someone else also asked this question at the beginning of the call. So if they are listening, this is for them as well. We just got this number on the basis of pro forma. So the opening was 5,515. The additions was 2,195. Recoveries and upgrades was 23 and 1929 was written off.
Okay, this is helpful. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of MB Mahesh from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I just had the same question now. So can you just kind of repeat that movement of NPLs for the quarter and for the full year as well?
So for the quarter, it started with 5,515 crores. I'm talking about pro forma 90 plus.
Sure.
Additions was 2,197. Recoveries was 23. And written off was 1929.
Okay. And for full year slippages?
For the full year, 993 crores was the opening balances. The full year slippages was 6887. About 100 crores was the recoveries and upgrades. And written off is 2,038. That comes to the closing number of 5757.
Perfect. Just one question. If I just kind of back calculate this number, if the cost increase on the MFI book is about 4,500 crores, are we looking at something like a 4.5% kind of a gross NPA in the rest of the portfolio?
In the
rest of the portfolio, there's housing, the SME and the others? Is that right?
Around that, we'll just come back with the exact numbers on that percentage.
And also, just a clarification to Mr. Iyer, if he can answer this. Till last quarter, the collection efficiency seemed to be kind of holding up quite well, and the quarter even before that. Yet we saw a restructured book of about 3%. And again, coming back to the question, if the gross NPA is about a little over 4%, what are we missing in these numbers out there? Because given that housing dominates the rest of the book outside the MFI.
No, see, here in the other segment, one large chunk is IL&FS, which is still not written off, right, which is about 400 crores.
Okay.
Right? And with respect to the housing book, the restructuring, that we have done is largely to the early delinquency standard customers. These are self-employed customers, and for them, housing loan is the cheapest rate loan, right? So if they have to take a moratorium or a restructuring, which will ultimately increase their cost because there is interest on interest, for them it makes sense to use this route to manage their cash flows, right? Suresh is on the call. Suresh can highlight whether this understanding is right.
Thanks, Sunil. Actually, the restructuring that has been done is, you're right, it is in respect of the old portfolio also. And these are all SMA 0 and regular customers, wherein even in the restructured portfolio also, in fact, we've had some collections. So it is not that customers have not been paying, and many of them have requested, some of them have requested for the restructuring at the very fag end after having made the payment, because looking at the situation, the prolonged COVID position is also, resulting in some of them having a rethink on whether to save their EMIs and improve their cash flows. So if you actually look at it, there are a lot of customers who have opted for restructuring but have also been paying. So that's the reason why, if you look at it, in fact, the number of customers who've not paid a single penny and having availed the restructuring and not paid a single penny is very, very small. It's about 1% or something only.
Sorry, and just one clarification. Mr. Iyer, yes. Mr. Iyer or Mr. Sunil, what is the NPL in the housing loan today?
It's about 3.6. Yes, Sunil, go ahead.
Just a second. In percentage terms, this NPL is 3%.
3%. Okay, done. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Adarsh Paraspuria from CLSA. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Hope you are keeping well. Question is on slide 7. You do show the buckets going down, but honestly, if I look at plus 30 days, which is 30 to 60, 60 to 90, and 90 days, and add back the 1,900, 2,000 crore write-off that we've done, I think we've got a fairly sticky, problematic book, right? Like if I just try to, and the base of loans in microfinance has grown by 8-10% in this quarter. So honestly, I think, I get a 9,000, 9,500 crore book, which was either plus 30 days or NPA or written off till last quarter, and that same number stays now. And we've had very strong collections, as you report, for the last at least 4-5 months. So seems that there is no material change in bucket. It's just that, the basis changed, accounts have migrated, and then some have been written off. Rest that 9,000 problematic book remains problematic. So if you can just explain, I've got the numbers right.
Adarsh, see, if we look at the absolute amount and not the percentage, which will take away that, whether it's a base effect or a percentage effect, right? In absolute amount, even if I take back the written off amount of close to 1,900, 2,000 crores, my overdue portfolio has improved by 2,200 crores. on the same like-to-like basis.
Yeah, Sunil, I would imagine.
And after write-off, it has improved by about 4,300 crores.
Yes, Sunil, I would guess that a lot of it is 8 to 30 days, which may have been relevant in December because Morat ended in August, so there were few weeks, and that 8 to 30 is also representation of risk, right? But if I move to March, I would say that accounts who are only 8 to 30 days do a relatively all right? But the rest of the book, I think is, if you remove 8 to 30, I think you'll almost have no change in the sticky problematic book. Correct me if I'm wrong. That 2,000 crore fall.
There has been improvement across all buckets. Yes, there has been a flow from 60 to 90, but there has been a rollback as well. And if you look at the absolute number, as I said, it is about 2,300 crores. And these 2,300 is not only 8 to 30 day bucket, it also includes customers from 31 to 60 and 61 to 90. There have been instances where even 60 plus customers today are zero DPD.
Got it. And second thing is, given the nature of the business and given where we are in the cycle, I just thought that look at it this way that we are 50% covered on NPA. We still have 5% 30 to 90 day. And we are heading into April where collections dip by about 4-5%. So what restricted us from doing more provisions, right? Like what? Why would you? And it's a high charge of business, right? You yourself have charged off 2,000 crores this year. So it seems that we are not getting into wave two with a strong balance sheet. Honestly, I think that's the honest feedback I would have because we are 50% covered on stress. We have a fairly material 30 to 90 day. And collections have dipped in April.
No, I would look at it differently, Adarsh.
Yeah.
We don't say that this is a high charge-off business. That has been the case only during pandemic time, and we had specific issues in a particular state, right? These instances come once in 100 years. Our 20 history does not suggest that it's a high write-off or high charge-off business, right? Now coming to the DPD buckets, right? One has to look at microfinance differently from other businesses. Here the customer intent is very important than the ability. I mean, ability is of course there, right? If a customer is paying part installments, because these are the customers who are at the bottom of the pyramid. They get impacted first and they recover also first, right? So if they pay part installments, so I would not treat that there is a loss given default. When I today show 4,500 crores as NPA of microfinance, I am not saying this will be my LGD for microfinance. Otherwise, 78% of customers in 90 DPD should not pay me in the month of March. Right? I have tried to explain the risk the way we see it, in the NPA and the delinquent bucket, right? Customers not paying, and even if I include customers paying up to 25% of their scheduled installments, still my provision is equal to 90% of that risk. So if the customer is paying me on an average 70% in a part payment customer, I would not call it as a risky customer and I'm carrying a huge risk in the balance sheet going forward. I have to classify them as an overdue customer, whether 30, 60, 90 or 190 plus, because that's the regulatory way of looking at DPD and risk. But honestly, that does not translate into the LGD. We've given a scenario where across all buckets, if I take non-paying customers and I take customers paying less than 25% of their scheduled installment for a month, still I am fully covered. And for the customer who is paying 50% of the installment, it's difficult to assume that their intention is to default and not pay.
Got it, Sunil. My last question is, can you just explain the interest reversal of 500 crore in this quarter? On what part of the book was it, and reflect upon your accounting policy for that, please?
So we've always been saying that we continue to accrue interest on account of customers which are not classified as NPA, in line with the IRAC norm. We had disclosed this number last quarter as well, which was close to 400 crores. This quarter, since this judgment came at the fag end almost on 31st March, the overall number was 525 crores. So this is the recognition, the unreceived interest, accrued but not received interest on the NPA portfolio. And since we have classified NPA after the gap of 12 months, this amount is large. But I would say this is a one-time, because now that the NPA recognition has started, we will not see these chunky reversals.
Got it. This is good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of S. Parameswaran from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I have a couple of questions. So firstly, on the ECLGS portion, so you have 330 crores sitting in the NPA bucket. So I wanted to understand if that is just the ECLGS facility or the entire borrowing of the borrower is concerned, because you've only in 3Q you had given out 1870 crores. So compared to that, it seems a relatively higher percentage. So that's my first question. I'll come back to it.
Yeah. So see, ECLGS is always given to an existing customer, right? So if the primary account of the customer becomes NPA, I have to classify the other account also as NPA. And hence, ECLGS portion of the total NPA customers is this 333. So this is not the overdue amount, this is the entire disbursement under ECLGS.
Okay, got that, sir. So I have a follow-up, basically another on the active borrowers. So that is up sharply quarter on quarter. So the first slide in the deck says that it's up by, the number of customers is up by 500,000. But if I look at the active borrowers, it's up by 1 million. Any particular reason for that?
Which number?
So this is slide 14.
Right. Slide 14. Okay. Right.
Yeah, so the active borrowers quarter on quarter is up by 1 million.
Yeah.
And the first slide in the deck says you added 500,000.
So these are the two.
No, if we see that the last year customer is in 11 million, it has come 12 million, 1 million has been increased.
So here that the way to look at, it's a good observation. See, I may have a customer who will not have an active loan, right?
Right.
They will only have a deposit because they had a loan at some point of time. They have repaid the loan. Currently, they don't have an active loan, but it's still our customer because they have a deposit account. In this quarter, they have taken the loan and hence the borrower count has increased, but the customer count remains same, as I have already factored in, as I have a deposit account with them.
And this is a trend of microcredit, and it is always happen on that. Sometimes the customer take a ledger for 3 months, 6 months, maybe you see that the customer is pregnant, not come take the loan.
I'm sorry, sir, I can't make out what you are saying.
saw, this is a trend of microcredit loan. The customer, these are sometimes they take a ledger. They have the account, they are taking the ledger for pregnant and they are not coming to take the loan. And the baby born, after that they are feel comfort after 6 months or 9 months, even 1 year, they again come to take the loan, but account is remaining there. For that reason, sometimes it is happening on that. And sometimes it is also seasonal. And the business season is coming, they are taking the loan, but when loan is closed, they haven't taken the time free, not taken the loan on that.
And in last financial year, which way the first 2 quarters we were a little, conservative in disbursement. And as things started improving in the last 2 quarters, the disbursements also picked up.
Got it. Thank you. If I could squeeze in one last question, your coverage currently is at 50%. Where do you see that going over the next year? If you have any, particular targets in mind. Thank you for all your answers.
So pre-technical write-off, it was about 64%. Post write-off, it has come down to 50%. If I take the additional standard asset provisioning that I carry in my balance sheet, it is about 57%. Yes, ideally we would keep building, as I said, and we would keep taking additional provisions, and not only if there is a risk in the environment, but also otherwise, because that's our learning of the last 2 years. So clearly this number will go up, whether we take additional standard asset provisioning or NPA provisioning, combined coverage will surely go up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Seshadri Sen from Alchemy Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my question. Hope all of you are safe and your all Bandhan employees and their families are safe in these really difficult times. A couple of questions I have. One is on the housing segment growth. One is that, while other housing finance companies have shown fairly strong momentum, your growth seems to be a bit tepid also. If I analyze the numbers that you've disclosed in the presentation, there seems to have been a rather large, about 5% of the book got paid down if I, analyze the disbursements versus the change in the book. So was there a sell down? Is that because of provisioning? If you could throw some light on that. And overall, in FY22, what is the outlook for growth? Once things normalize, do you hope to catch up with the rest of the industry? Because the growth seems to be tepid compared to the, even adjusting for the fact that you're more focused on affordable housing.
Suresh, you would want to take that?
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Seshadri. So the thing is, I wouldn't say the prepayment. If I didn't get your question exactly what you're asking on in terms of the reconciliation of the loan book, because the disbursement.
If you look at the slide where you disclose disbursements and loan books, I think that's slide 15. Right? You started with a book of 90,700 crores. You ended with 20,200 crores. You disbursed 1,400 crores. That is a 950 odd crore, 950 odd crore repayments in 1 quarter. If you annualize that, that's about 20%. The EDFC a couple of days ago was saying their long-term average is 11. So unless I'm missing a number, that number seems to be a little high.
No, see, on an average, we have been getting about prepayments of about 150 crores. So if you look at the analysis in the opening book and the closing book, so we started the loan book with 18,580 crores, added 3,668 crores. That's it. And the closing figure is 20,200. So that's about 2,000 crore, which is in line with the prepayment and the natural amortization which happens. So about 150 crores on an average. This year, of course, the prepayment has been lower. Otherwise, it used to be around 200 crores per month would be the prepayment which would happen. So if you look at it from that point of view,
I'm more, Suresh, I'm more talking about the quarterly numbers. If you see 197 billion going to 202 billion as against disbursements in the quarter of 14. Is the 14 billion the annual disbursement or the quarterly disbursement?
quarterly disbursement.
Quarterly. So if you see 197 going to 202, that's a 5 billion delta in your book. And you had a 14 billion disbursement, which means a 9 billion repayment, roughly, on a 197 billion book. You can double check and get back to me, later. That's also fine.
No,
the quarterly numbers is what I'm focusing on. It appears to be high. I'm not sure whether you have a seasonality in your repayments as well. Maybe that is the case.
No, there is the seasonality is not as much in this book, but it's only in the construction finance book where there is so there's not much of this thing. 150 to 160 crore if you look at it. So in a quarter also it's about 500 crores, 450 to 500 crores anyway is the prepayment that comes plus the amortization which happens. So that's the basic thing. Plus obviously there would because of the so basically that's the kind of thing. So but still we'll check back on the figures and come back to you.
Sure. Thanks. And the outlook for FY22 and why you're sort of lagging behind the industry a little bit?
Yeah, sure. See, if you look at the quarterly disbursements and you look at the disbursements of the Q4 and Q3, and there you would see that a sizable chunk, or I would say the majority of the disbursements have happened in the second half of the year only. And if you just look at the disbursement growth in terms of the second half vis-a-vis the second half of the previous financial year, you would see that the growth has been good. It's only that the first half of the year the disbursements were quite low, and that has affected the overall growth, and the rundown on the book has been a little on the higher side in the first half. So that's why we almost had just a flat 1% growth or somewhat in the outstanding loan book as at the end of the first half. So if you look at the disbursements in the second half, there has been a good growth, and we are fairly confident that going forward, the geographical expansion plus the the way the markets are doing in terms of affordable housing, we are definitely hopeful that the business will pick up.
Understood. Thanks, Suresh. The second question to Mr. Ghosh and the team is on your deposit strategy. You're doing great in terms of even deposit acquisition. If I back calculate the number of customers on the savings side, that also seems to have been very impressive in the fourth quarter. But your pricing is still quite aggressive. If I understand correctly, you're paying 6% above all 1 lakh deposits, which is higher than your peak fixed deposit rate. So anybody above 1 lakh essentially won't take a fixed deposit with you and will put a savings account. And which is why your accretion to savings is actually higher than your accretion to fixed deposits. When will you start adjusting this pricing? Because your balance sheet seems to be very liquid. You're doing very well. I know some of your peers are following this aggressive pricing, so maybe the market is moving that way. But you have a much more solid base than some of those peers. So would you look to adjust that 6% pricing at some stage? Because right now it appears that you're attracting a lot of proxy FDs into the book. I don't know the exact percentage of deposits that are above 1 lakh, and your average balances did come down, but just the pricing seems to be a little skewed at this point.
So you are right. We have already taken steps in that direction. Last quarter, we reduced our minimum saving balance rate from 4 to 3. And it's a matter of time when our 6% rate will also come down.
And what is your average cost of savings deposit rates? If you could share that.
Average savings deposit. Second.
So does that answer your question?
5.15.
I'm waiting for a response.
5.15.
5.1. Thank you so much. Thank you and good luck for the next financial year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a reminder to the participants, please limit your question to 2 per participant. You may come back in the question queue if you have a follow-up, as we have many people waiting for their turn. The next question is from the line of Kunal Shah from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking the question and hope all safe and well. Firstly, in terms of the DPD pool, the way we had given some breakup in terms of the part paying and the non-paying, and especially wherein the payment has not been up to 50% how would that be in 31 to 60 and 61 to 90 day bucket, particularly for the Assam and West Bengal portfolio?
State-wise, DPD, bucket-wise, we don't have it very that granular data.
Just trying to get that 11% of Assam is still in 31 to 90 and 6.2 in West Bengal. So just to get the riskiness of that, I wanted to see if there are part paying or...
Assam and West Bengal, we had elections right in March, April, and election fever, I would rather say, not exactly election, but the election fever. And we had to deal also with this COVID-related and Assam-specific issues. So like to like, what would have to see, rather than just independently looking at current DPD percentage number. So directionally, we get confidence when we see these numbers coming down. And you will also appreciate that we have not done a single restructuring in our unsecured book, whether EEB or other portfolio, or for that matter, any portfolio other than housing. So this, with no restructuring, with the level of activities we have seen in this state and the COVID impact, and directionally in one quarter, if I see a 4% reduction, it gives us confidence rather than worry.
Sure. And related question in terms of the growth, looking at the behavior of the pool and write-off which we have to take, wouldn't it be fair to consolidate the book rather than still growing it aggressively, particularly on the EEB side? Because we can find this in other states as well. So maybe the vintage we had in West Bengal, Assam, okay, plus maybe the kind of write-offs, and as you said, like competition also came in and that has impacted, but that would be true all across. So shouldn't we look at the consolidating in this kind of an uncertainty rather than still growing it aggressively the way we are doing it currently?
Actually, we are not going to the aggressive. West Bengal is our business is at 20 years, and Assam, our business is at 15 years. So vintage of the customer are more in those two states. And if you see that strategically, we are not reducing, we are transforming group loan to the individual loan, which is 11% of the loan now has come as an individual loan from group loan transformed on that the last one quarter. So that is the way we are improving and to reduce the group loan on that. Second point on that, wherever the business, if it is in larger number of network, there is a little bit this type of NPA or written off will come on that. Where it is small number of, that will be not come. Another steps we have been taken in this year. You know that there is a branch, only the model is there, the 3,000 borrowers and 500 borrowers per staff. It has been increased some of the branches, which is more than 3,000, is a 4,000, and the staff are maintaining because of the all systematically running, and from 500 to 600. Now we are split that branches and given to this the less than 500 borrowers in a one credit officer, and one branch will be like to not more than 3,000 borrowers. So split on that, and the more branch we can be split. That can be helped from the future to maintain the quality of the portfolio in this space also. Because demand is here, we cannot say deny on that, we cannot give. But other part, if you see that the 300 632 new banking unit, which is microcredit office, we have been opening this year, and only one branch open in Bengal. All are open other than Bengal and Assam. So we are diversifying very strategically, not any close of the branch on this.
You know, just to summarize, it is not an underwriting issue. It is not a process issue. It is not a company-specific issue for me to, yes, we are cautious. We are cautious because of environment. We are cautious because of the activity that's been around. So if the environment improves, if the business environment improves, we are confident about our process, and there is a demand in the market, so that will come.
I visited a couple of days to the NPA, high NPA borrowers, and they mentioned about it on that. They said, see that whatever you see in this, the nearby of your area, in the eye, my house and this furniture, everything I have been developed from your loan to running my business, and surplus money I have been invested. I cannot forget you. If the time, I'll return back on that. It is a very highly committed customer. So I like to say that this is not that because of business model, because of underwriting issue, so that, no. It is a very different situation has come up. We are very hopeful on that. That will be returned back.
Sure. And secondly, on housing finance, so overall almost 620 plus 620 of NPL plus restructured on 20,000 crores of a book. That is much higher compared to all the affordable housing finances, the way they have actually reported. So want to get that, and what would be the average ticket of LAP, and what would be the more than 1 crore kind of a portfolio in this, in the overall housing finance?
So to your first question, you can't bucket the two, NPA and restructuring, and say this is a stress pool. As I explained earlier, the restructuring in housing finance is a support given to self-employed customers to manage their business. Right? Housing finance is the cheapest loan available to self-employed customers, so they choose this route to generate cash flow and get the benefit of some restructuring or deferment. So this does not mean it's a riskier portfolio which I am restructuring to manage my book. Right? Suresh can confirm. We have not given restructuring to a riskier customer, which is all standard and early zero delinquent, largely or an early delinquent bucket customer. And in terms of your ticket size, Suresh can confirm what is our average ticket size on the housing and the LAP business.
Yes. So as earlier also I had mentioned in this one of the previous questions that had come, the restructuring is given mainly, as Sunil said, for a support to the customers, but it is not an indication that there is a stress. Yes, they have taken it to ease their cash flow. Customers have looked at it as an option to ease their cash flow. And as I had mentioned earlier, there are many customers who have also been paying the EMIs, and still they have a restructured, they have sought for a request or requested for a restructuring, but they have been paying EMIs, and on and off they have been servicing the installments also. So actually the number of people who have not been paying is very, very, very small. So that's the first point. In terms of the average ticket size, there's not much of a difference between the LAP average ticket size or the thing for a normal customers, because the segment is the same, and normally the LAP also that is available by the customers is by the retail customers who normally take it for a small consumption kind of loan. So it's not a very large value LAP that we have. In the overall book also, if you look at it, that portfolio that is in excess of 1 crore would be very, very small, would probably be, just about, 2% or something, that it wouldn't be beyond that, excluding the construction finance, of course, in the retail book.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
And just to answer the previous question of Mr. Seshadri, actually one of the reasons for the higher this thing is that in January we received a very high CLSS subsidy in one of the earlier questions. just giving the clarification. We received a very large subsidy in the month of January. It is something which cannot be planned. As and when the government releases the subsidy, the credit has to be given to the customer's principal. So it has to be shown as a prepayment to the loan. So that's the normal, that addition to the figure that happened in January.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Shagun Verma from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity second time. Sunil, just one small understanding rather. On slide 8, the portfolio that you've shown, 25 to 50, etc. What would be the duration of this portfolio? When do you expect these customers to run off, or this portfolio to run off?
So see, the duration of the portfolio would have extended by 6 months because of the moratorium, right? So that's why, but surely in the next 6 months, we should see these portfolio or these customers, at least 50% of these customers to run off.
And that would lead to upgradations, therefore, because you're saying, they're still kind of paying.
Yes, that will lead to upgradation. See, when this issue happens, the first 12 months is the year of pain, which is what we are going through, right? We saw the issue, we saw the challenges, we saw delinquencies going up, and now when the collection starts coming in, you will see the DPD buckets reducing, and at some point of time, there will be actual upgrades. Had we been an NBFC, probably I would have upgraded 12% of these accounts this quarter itself, because 90%, at least 11% of these NPA customers are below 90 days. So over a period of time, these upgrades will also come.
Yeah. And just one more point, the new underwriting that you've done in the last quarter, the disbursal of 26,000 crores, that would predominantly be in 0 to 8 day bucket, right? Almost all of it.
That would be in current bucket. That would be in current bucket, not delinquent bucket.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant that only. So what's the total current bucket for us? Last quarter it was 75%, right? So what it would be now? I mean, just
on the EPG side, this quarter, it is 83%. 82%.
All right.
If I have to take it in one day. Yeah, 82%.
Understood. Sorry, just one final question. So the risk-based supervision by the RBI, has that been completed for the previous year?
When you talk about RBI means?
So the RBI conducts the annual audit, right? The risk-based supervision, etc.
Right.
So that has been completed for the previous financial year, and I guess since there is no mention of it, so no adverse outcome to be reported, right?
Nothing to be reported.
Got it. Thank you so much. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jai Mundhra from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Thanks for the opportunity. The first question is on ECLGS. Now we have reported 3.3 billion have turned NPA, and we had also said that we had started ECLGS last quarter only, wherein you would have disbursed additional 20% with a moratorium of at least 12 months. So just wanted to check, if you can explain how did they turn NPA in this quarter itself?
See, if the principal account becomes NPA, all linked accounts have to be classified as NPA.
Okay, so the ECLGS money that you have given, that was not given to so there are two accounts running, two facilities running at least, right? So one facility they have got the ECLGS, but they have defaulted on the other facility.
Yes, so the primary account they have defaulted and become 90 DPD, and so I have to categorize all accounts as NPA.
Okay. And secondly, sir, if I heard you correctly, you said slippages for this quarter was somewhere around 2197 billion, 2100 crore, 21.97 billion, and recovery of only 23 crores. And if I see your slide 8, that shows a decent amount of recovery
that you have done or that you have effected already. So is this the slippages number? Is this some netting off of recovery that is happening in slippages?
See, for us, if I have to show a recovery, a customer has to move from NPA to standard bucket. Less than 90 is still an NPA.
Right, but any one installment that he's paying should be a part of recovery, right? If he pays three installments, then it will become an upgrade.
No, so for us, when we say recovery means their DPD has become zero.
Okay, he has just moved down the bucket, but he is still in the NPA.
Yes.
But in that case also, if he's let's say 89 DPD, and if he is let's say 120 DPD, and by paying one installment he becomes 92 DPD, for example, then that additional money should be a part of NPA movement, right? In terms of recovery.
No, sorry, I didn't get your example.
No, so any NPA account who is paying you one installment,
yes,
this should come in the recovery movement, right? Which I think, if I remember right, you had said only 23 crore recovery.
It's not coming in recovery. Unless the account becomes zero DPD, only then we show it as recovery.
That would be an upgrade.
Yeah. So we are only talking about upgrade.
So what is the recovery amount?
Recovery amount, we don't track it that way. So when we say recovery, it is upgrade, where the customer has become 90 to 0 DPD.
Right. Okay, so in this slide 8, what is the absolute amount of recovery that you have effected in third quarter or fourth quarter? Is this 26.6 billion number is the recovery, or this is just downward bucket movement?
No. I am saying this is the breakup of 4,120 crores, which is the non-ECLGS part of NPA portfolio. So 2,626 crores worth of customers are paying. They are making part payments. 589 crores are paying full installments. But they are still in NPA because unless they become zero DPD, I can't upgrade them. And 902 is paying part installments. So essentially, this is the breakup of my 4,112 non-ECGL, ECLGS, NPA pool.
Right. Okay, so I mean this 589 crore which they are paying in full from incremental basis, this should ideally be reflected in recovery, right? Or no?
So yes, but the way we look at it, we show recoveries only when there is an upgrade. But if you say that recovery from NPA customers, then that amount will be very large.
Right.
Because part payment is also a recovery, 589 is also a recovery.
Right. So maybe then, so if the recovery is, let's say hypothetically, if you were to report this recovery, then slippages will also go up, or no?
No, slippages won't go up.
Okay.
Those who have moved into 90 bucket have taken entirely into slippages.
Right. Okay. Sure, sir. And the third and last question, sir, is, I mean, we have seen 5% credit cost in FY21, and we are entering FY22 with 3.5% of net NPA, and we have 8.6% of 30 DPD plus, whereas in the month of April, we are seeing a drop in collection efficiency as well. I mean, from credit cost perspective, right, it looks like it could be a repeat of FY21, right? Because you have 3.5% net NPA plus, a reasonable amount of, DPD account.
No, we don't think that way because clearly in last year the issues were different. We had faced the national lockdown. The businesses were not running. The transport was not happening. The travel was not permitted. We as a bank were not allowed to go and meet our customers. All of this is not there in this wave, second wave. The businesses are running, the banks are open, we can meet our customers, right? So the impact will not be same. And last year we faced another issue as well, which is in Assam, right? So we clearly think that this year has to be much better than last year.
And customers, they are also make their new model of the business, which was not earlier.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's it from my side. All the best, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of S. Parmeshwaran from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. This is Prakhar. Sunil, if you can clarify on, slide 7, you have this, split of the SMA book, etc. And in the previous slide, you have given the collection efficiency on a portfolio excluding write-offs and NPA at 98%. Now, basically, if I have to get a comfort on what is the residual risk outside of NPLs but overdue, can you clarify that across these buckets, 80-30, 31-60 and all, what is the collection efficiency that you had in March?
So, as we said, we disclosed also in our presentation that including write-off and NPA, our collection efficiency was 95%. If we exclude write-off and NPA from our collection efficiency, it is 98%. That is collection efficiency side. Now, we've also done a risk assessment, right? We can always argue whether my assessment is right or wrong, but the way we look at risk is, I have considered, the way we look at microfinance business, it's a discipline-based product. If a customer starts paying, we have seen our experiences that the amount will be fully recovered. So what we have done here is, we have considered non-paying customers as the fourth option, right? We have given 4 scenarios in risk estimate. The fourth option is, we've considered customers across all buckets who are not paying, plus the customers who are in part payment and paying up to 25% of their installments.
Actually, that part is understood and very clear. Basically, the issue is about what is the tail risk, right? And I understand your subjective assessment, but as an outsider, it might help us that, let's say, this 3.3% in the 8 to 30-day bucket and 2.8%. On these portfolios, what is the level of collections you could actually see in the March month? Was it in the very narrow range around 97-98% for most of the buckets, or was there any skew? That might just help us.
So I don't have the delinquency bucket-wise collection efficiency, but I don't think it would be very different given the fact that my overall delinquencies across buckets have come down.
Got it. Maybe I can take it offline with you.
Yeah, please.
Sure. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Sunil Samdani, CFO, for closing comments.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking time out on a weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
On behalf of Bandhan Bank Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining. You may now disconnect your line.